In a complicated world, we need art. Art, in all its mediums, allows us as individuals and as a society to address often taboo topics. For this episode, I sit down with Wilson and Josie Santos from a Lynn, Massachusetts-based nonprofit, Beyond Walls. Beyond Walls uses public art to create community-inspired murals and other curated experiences to activate spaces and strengthen community. Normally, I let the intro flow right into the episode. However, today I'd like to ask that you go and see their work before continuing on. Their work is inspiring, and seeing it will help to create better context for this episode's conversation. I'd recommend watching the quick video entitled Beyond Walls 2017 Mural Festival Recap Full Version, which can be found on their website at beyond-walls.org. When you arrive to the landing page, click enter, and then scroll to the bottom of their homepage and you'll see a video embedded from Vimeo. Once again, the website is beyond-walls.org. Please pause here and go check out the site and this video. Now that you've seen how they build community through art, this episode will explore how they're actively responding to the COVID crisis both locally in Lynn and surrounding communities of need. Please note that this episode was recorded in their warehouse office, and so the audio has a little echo and there's also some background work going on. To quote JR, a world-renowned French street artist, "Art isn't supposed to change the world, but it can." I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is Wi-Fi and Water. Okay, so I am here with Al and Josie from Beyond Walls organization in Lynn. Al and Josie, how are you guys doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Doing very well. Thanks for having us.
Excellent, excellent. So we are here in the studio in Lynn. How long have you guys been here?
We moved here, I'm going to say it was beginning of last year, fairly early last year. Prior to that, we've been in a sort of donated, completely unbuilt out office space on Union Street. And then the space we're in here is much bigger, but was a machine shop,
Okay.
which we think is pretty fitting.
It seems very fitting.
Yeah.
It seems very fitting. And for our listeners, if you hear any ambient banging, it's because we are currently in production of some hand washing stations that will then be distributed around the community and other local communities. So we are still in the machine shop.
We got two awesome students from Lynn Tech, are paid interns at Beyond Walls, and they're cranking out. So it's fun, but it's noisy.
It's fun and noisy. That's a good way to put it. And I feel like this is a downtime potentially when I was able to drop by today, because I feel like this thing could be kind of, a bunch of people at the office, people over here making stuff, people getting stuff ready to go out in the community, people here in a conference. What is this normal for the Beyond Walls office?
I think I'd like to call it a little bit controlled chaos. Josie might disagree on that, but it can be totally chaotic at times. I mean, we're really 3 full-time parties, and then we scale up and scale down based on different projects, including the festival. Obviously, has us vastly increase our numbers for just before the artists arrive, while the artists are with us, to do the cleanup. But right now, we've been fairly responsive in the projects we're taking on based on community needs during COVID. And so it has us sitting in here now thinking, there's probably 5 or 6 municipalities right now that are waiting on responses on my end just in the last, 12 hours for these hand washing stations, and also our another project we've got called Fold, which is our outdoor dining. And then Josie's running point on a project called Truth Be Told, which is youth stories about this time of COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on in their lives, which ultimately influences the art that's coming in the city. So we're herding cats. We got there's a lot going on. And Josie's got some other projects that we haven't unveiled yet, but she's working flat out. Phil, who's on the far side of operations, is flat out. And obviously the interns are just cranking. So it's good. But we're hoping that we can ramp up production of these. And it's pretty cool to be, manufacturing in a former machine shop here in a city that was built upon manufacturing. So it's pretty neat.
Right, and I think sometimes growing up in the North Shore, I forget that this area used to be an industrial hub for the Northeast. And it's more, for me, it's a lot more present if I go to Lowell, because it's just so those buildings are just so prominent. And the Cummings Center in Beverly used to be the United Shoe. And I forget that now, because now you go and there's Acapulco's, and there's a bunch of lawyers and dentists. Yeah. And then driving through Lynn too, you have these very cool spaces that are now being retrofitted to do other things in the community, which is great.
Yeah.
And so, Josie, do you want to talk about the Truth Be Told?
Truth Be Told. Yeah. It's the opportunity for the youth can speak out about the period they spend inside with the family and no school and all the news about the virus and have to keep social distance. They can get it together with the friends. And the Truth Be Told the opportunity to the kids can speak out through art and through photography or poem, or they can talk about some history, what's going on. And in October, you're gonna put it into the art and put in the walls and celebrate. I can say celebrate you overcome the first 4 months and cough. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Yeah, super exciting.
And are these is it just Lynn students, Lynn community members, or is it beyond Lynn?
With Lynn students. Yeah, it's for the youth. Okay. And we have some municipality, some kids come from other municipality can join Boys and Girls and the YMCA, and this kid's gonna be able to participate, submit some arts to us. Yeah. Yeah,
because I was looking around. I think it's tbt2020.com. Shout out, visit that, and it looks really cool.
Yeah.
What kind of stories? Is it open-ended when you reach out and you're tell us a story, or do you give kids kind of a little bit of parameter so you spur different types of things, or do you just say, tell us a story?
No, they have 3 projects. One, okay. They can speak out, they can talk about, and they can do a poem, they can writing about. The second one is inside out. They have the chance to photograph who is the hero for them this time. It can be the nurse, it can be the parents, it can be the caregivers, it can be the grandparents. Someone was around and take care in this moment. It can be the firefighter, it can be the police department, it can be people working in the food, to deliver food for people in this moment. They're gonna have a chance to take a photo from the hero, submit to us, and they're gonna have a chance to say to us why they was the hero. And this is gonna be
blown up. Yeah, so it's part of the French artist JR.
I was gonna say it sounds like JR in his work, which is super powerful.
Yeah. So it's inside out project, and the youth stories and their photo ends up being part of that collection, and then we'll blow all of these photos up. They're black and white. And we paste them on the walls, and we just got another wall agreement last night. So and we're looking to maximize the amount of youth that participate, and that's why it's such a big age range, 5 to 21. But it's age specific prompts. The drawing prompt, that ends up being taken from a low fidelity image to high fidelity. And we partnered with Amplifier, which is a Shepherd Ferry-led team, and they have their designs, their posters from COVID, from social unrest and humanitarian endeavors that are going on right now, Black Lives Matter, and basically the kids' drawings and Amplifier's drawings become this massive quilt, which is also a giant wheat paste. Our other partner in it, Harbor Voices from Gloucester, is really a storytelling feature. So this would be actual audio recordings of the youth stories. and then we're going to do hopefully an in-person immersive environment where it's Harbor Voices is leading this. It's Fog Machines. It's a laser show that's matched up to hearing these stories of these youth. Pretty powerful. We have the means to do that virtually if depending on COVID-19. And then the sort of fourth element is what we're known for, which is putting up large-scale street art. So we have new artists coming to the city. We've curated it a little bit differently this year. In the past, it's really been pretty not tight parameters. They always have creative license, and that's still the case. It has to be family friendly. In the past, it couldn't be overtly political. We're taking a softer margins on the overtly political side, because this is special times and special needs, and these are all the artists that are coming in are actually going to review all of the feedback from the youth, and they're going to use that as part of their creative process and what they put up on the walls. So it could be very interesting, but up to 5 artists, should be fun.
That was going to be one of the questions I had in my head today was, when do you move away? When do you transition from some of the current art that I've seen driving around Lynn, being on the train, to something a little bit more political?
Yeah.
Because I think art in culture, whether it's poetry, whether it's a hip hop lyric, whether it's music in general, a mural, street art in any medium, normally creates conversation around things that we don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. So whether that's drugs, sex, religion, or politics, mm-hmm. or politics being an umbrella where all those things kind of fit in, or money, normally it allows us to say, hey, did you hear that song? I heard it. This is what I thought about it. What did you think about it? And now just even as simple 3 words written on a street in the United States, I've never seen it cause so much chaos. Now that's maybe not, it's art in some sense, but it's not, it's more of like a statement. And so where do you think the artist will take it as far as now being able to say, hey, you can make more of a political image if you want? Do you have any idea what that, because it is kind of an opening of Pandora's box and potentially changing the way that you're, I think it's called space making. Is that the
placemaking?
Placemaking. Excuse me. Thank you. What do you think that's gonna do?
I mean, that's part of the challenge, and Josie and I chat about this all the time. Is our mission is to activate space to strengthen communities. It has to be that the projects are driven from the community. So there's community-based needs that we want to understand all of them. We then have to look at the ones that we think can be addressed through a creative means, creative placemaking, and we take on those projects. But you have to have permissions from a bunch of different parties. Sometimes on a municipal, if you look at the underpass lighting, it's like, all right, you got to get approvals from the MBTA and local. It's an awful lot of parties that you got to check a bunch of boxes. So the can't be overtly political is, when it comes to the art, is often very important, right? It can't be that, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit, so we're not a religious organization, we're not a political organization, and we have to be, there's some parameters there, there's some goalposts. Because this is driven from the youth, and this is the youth of this community, I think it gives us the means to relax this. This is what, if you don't want to listen to what adults are saying during this time, you better be listening to what the youth are saying, and they have something to say. And so we viewed it as it's honestly on us to make sure that their voices are heard. And hopefully this project and this art allows for that directly, and that their art directly goes up, but also what they're sharing, these artists can take from that and run on it. and it'll still be family friendly. Obviously, there's no barrier of entry, so we don't want anything that for families walking around is offensive. But quite frankly, if you don't like this piece, there's another piece that you can look at that's in the background and walk on, move on, continue to activate. It's sort of that's the power of street art, right? It tells the stories of what's going on, and there's no barrier of entry. There's no cost for admission. So, excited for it.
And our project was basically was the community feedback, and we working. The priority was the youth, but we work with the family, work with the other organizations, and we constantly discussing, what is the best for them, where they want to be, where they want to see reflecting the city, where they want to see reflecting the murals, where they want to improve the place they live, and basically in this we working with the other parties to improve the environment. There's people living, there's people working, there's people walking by or shopping, and this is interesting when the kids or family walk around and they can see like, oh, I'm a part of this project. Oh, I helped this artist painted this one here. Oh, I was here this one. This guy's pretty cool, I have a lunch with this guy. Oh, I have a chance to catch up with them. They from my country. Oh, they speak my language, and the kids get so proud to be part of the process, and this is for them. We're not doing this like for beyond walls. You're doing this to give back for the community. You have the privilege to have this welcome community, and embrace, what you're doing, and we work in the grassroots, sometimes like that's okay. We're here to work together. You don't have to be afraid, Community as a Lynn, you have a many challenge, like an immigration situations, family difference. Sometimes they take a time, so they can start to put the voice in. But when you bring someone similar to the community, this is facilitate to us to communicate. And if they say, oh, this artist from Dominican Republic, oh, I'm from Dominican Republic. No, they say, why is it famous there? Oh, this is awesome. Thank you, bring someone reflect to me, and this is starting to open the conversation with the population, with the kids, with the business, and the other organization. And we're working hard to continue to have this relationship and grow, and expand, and take voices and lean outside the lane, And for example, we are in Miami in the Basel last year, and I was very it's an honor for me to hear many people say, "Oh, you guys from Lynn? Oh my gosh, this is Lynn. We're here from Lynn." They don't say it's from Boston, Massachusetts. It's Lynn. Lynn was this place. I hear something cool happening there. The city is very welcome. Some artists have good experience with the community there. The people is very welcome then, and this for me was great. They refer to my city, and for the kids too to hear someone mention Lynn, and this is it's very proud to say I'm Lynner and I have a different message outside my city.
Yeah, and with that said, you guys have had a lot of artists, obviously, as you've been saying, outside of the community come into the community of Lynn.
And working for the artists, local artists.
And work and collaborating.
Yes.
So because on the website, I saw you have a great Google map that says, it geo-tags all the walls you can go see and talks about and gives history, which is great. Out of all the artists who have ever come in or added, where are we talking about? We're talking about global, right? People have come from Europe, from Africa, from South America, from Asia. What countries stick out? If you can give a roll call of countries, where have artists come from to Lynn, Massachusetts to collaborate?
Oh, we have Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
DR and London.
Cambodian,
and Australian, Argentina, Brazil,
Eastern European.
We've got Colombian.
Yeah, we've got
everywhere.
It's a very diverse.
Yeah.
We've got we could walk less than 100 yards from this office and have food from, on Union Street, 5 different continents. So it's been fun to bring, there's been some common themes, pretty much every year we have an artist from the DR, we have artists from Puerto Rico, we have a Cambodian artist, there's a sizable Ukrainian, Russian population here. So there's some common themes, and then we branch out. Last year we happened to have quite a few artists join us. It was a contingent, sort of an artist team from Colombia, and so we did a piece at a Colombian restaurant. It was a lot of fun parties. A lot of it's been that's been the fun, is seeing these artists all gain weight when they're here, right? So we provide food, but they're having like second and third breakfast.
That sounds like the title of the podcast. Fat graffiti.
Fat graffiti.
Come to Lynn, get fat.
But it's so special, and it's like I wasn't as I guess conscious of that. The cultural ties to food, drink, music that becomes really readily apparent when you've got different artists on different walls throughout the city, and there's like a mini community party going on around that wall that's different. And we're running point. We've got last year we hired 10 Lynn-based teenagers to 2 weeks before the artists arrived, we started teaching them project management skills and how we were going to operate the festival. And then you've got 17 artists from whatever it was, 12 countries come in, and then they're running point with you, and all of these like fun magical things are happening every day, as well as logistical challenges. It's a lot of fun. It's like you just wish there were more hours in the day, and you wish that every night you could get 3 more hours sleep, because you'd be able to enjoy it a bit. I guess you'd be able to 6 weeks goes real quick, right? So you got the artist in for 2 weeks. It takes 2 weeks hard work to prep, 2 weeks for them to be with us, and then 2 weeks on the back end to do the cleanup. And when you're done, it is it's almost like a dream, You're like, did that really just happen? Was that? But it's been fun, and it's I think from the get go, you learn an awful lot doing the work, and none of us we hadn't lit bridges before. None of us had installed figured out how to install large scale pieces of art.
Work the lift. Yeah, I see these videos and these lifts, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
We all got certified in lift operation, so it was sort of like, it was kind of, it's been a lot of, you got a 1942 IA jet engine behind you on the couch there, that's ready to be installed at City Hall. Never conserved the jet engine, it was just, but throughout the common theme was having youth work with us on these projects. So whether it's Lynn Tech students, 3 interns interned on the underpass lighting project with the IBEW 103, the electricians union. 2 of them became union electricians. All 3 of them became electricians. That's a really cool project for them to work on in their junior year, junior and senior year. These interns now that are helping us on Wash and Fold, or the 10 interns last year that helped us with the festival. It was just sort of like, that's been the, when we think about those magical moments, it's been moments with the kids, with the youth. And so that's ended up being something that, a little bit we happened upon. We wanted to have interns on these projects, but more and more as we've got involved, it's like, all right, what are we trying to do with the youth through this project as well? Building that in from inception. So it's community fed, which is all groups, all walks, all ages, filling us in on some needs. and then us plugging in, making sure that we've got that youth component, which is fun.
Oh, yeah.
This is new. I mean, like, we never, the hand washing station was, COVID hit. It hit certain communities particularly hard. Lynn was one. I think we had some really great people here that were working very early to address issues that they knew were going to surface. We've got a lieutenant on the fire department who we're close with, who on a federal level since before Katrina was working on disaster relief, and has worked under a bunch of administrations on a federal level through his training and through his work, and starting in late January, early February, was flying out like every week, every 2 weeks to DC and working there, and then ultimately told the Fed, I think at end of February or early March, I have to stay in my city. And he helped. He was one of the leaders of the task force set up here to address COVID-19 challenges. We plugged in. They plugged us in. Then because we were like, for whatever reason, despite the diversity of the work, we're known as like the art people. So it's like, well, what are we going to do with these guys? I had to throw them on we got plugged into the vulnerable population task force. And that was it was hearing, Lynn Community Health saying our nurses are seeing parties that, they haven't washed their hands in 3 weeks, and My Brother's Table, which is the largest soup kitchen up here in the North Shore, saying, hey, all of the restaurants, all of the bars, all of the cafes, everywhere that was a public restroom that the parties that we're serving were utilizing to wash their hands are shuttered. There's no hand, how are we going to stop the spread amongst this population and to us? And so that was the catalyst for, our first hand washing station, which is up on Union Street. It's like a kit of parts. I mean, it's like a 275-gallon tank with a sink attached to the side of it. And, it's very much rudimentary compared to what the kids are working on now. But that was the catalyst for WASH, for this project. Yeah. So it's at times, it's.
Yeah, at times you have to be creative, as Lynn was amazing this last couple months and this last 4 months, and we see the community really, really came together. Parties came together, feeding the city, feeding all the municipality around here, and we as a placemaker organization, we have to bring something to put on the table that's available to help the community with COVID-19, and why not some hand wash,
Yeah, the hand washing is incredible. I spent a couple of years in the Peace Corps in Guatemala doing doing a public health project called Healthy Schools. And it was crazy because they send you out to these communities and they're like, yeah, you basically are going to go help if we want to talk about it. This is not on my resume. It looks cooler. But it's like you're sent out of these communities and you have to do 2 things. Wash hands and brush teeth. Yeah. That's it. It's not sexier than that. Yeah. But with those 2 habits, standards of health improve. The efficacy behind those things are so strong. And then you get to these communities and there's no water. And there's no water. So how do you do these habits? And so it's really cool that you guys are saying, to stop the pandemic, this is what we have to do. We have to wash hands. We need spaces to be able to do that. Now we have them. And so how many of these are going to be put out around? How many are you creating?
So we did the one for Lynn Community Health Center, knowing that we had to, as quickly as we could, produce some for My Brother's Table. And then because, it was a huge group, the Vulnerable Population Task Force, but there were 4 major organizations that were involved. Lynn Community Health Center, the largest, regional health center for Greater Lynn up here. It's 200 physicians, 700 employees, pretty sizable. My Brother's Table, largest soup kitchen on the North Shore, Lynn Shelter Association, the shelter here, because the shelter actually had to expand and move to the YMCA, the Lynn YMCA. And so it was, how do we get hand washing stations to those parties? And then through that process, we sort of learned that, all right, well, there's, we're also driven on economic vibrancy and development. And so looking at all these restaurants that we've had, strong ties to based on bringing them the artists and bringing them out, it was, the numbers were pretty, it's address immediate need, but thereafter it's like, all right, times of COVID, all these restaurants are closed. They're all going to shutter. It's just a matter of time. Then it was sort of expand outdoor seating. How do we help facilitate getting them hand washing stations that facilitate, that if someone is afraid to go in the restaurant to wash their hands, even now the restaurants are open, right? Restaurants are open, but 30% of the restaurants in Salem, which is pretty dense restaurant-wise, are seating people indoors. So how do you get someone, if they're grabbing a taco, how do you get them so that they have a means of washing their hands before and then after? Or for a park, the World Health Organization, in lieu of a vaccine, there's two ways that you can mitigate the spread of this thing. Wear a mask and wash your hands. A kid wearing a mask, it's perfectly fine for that kid to play on a playground. If they wash their hands before and they wash their hands afterwards, you're safe, right? You're wearing a mask. So how do we facilitate doing that in communities that don't have the finances to just quickly come up with something new and implement it? So
right, to just quickly invest in something, a different solution.
Yeah.
And so when I was preparing for this sit down with you guys, I was thinking a lot about JR, because I think JR is fascinating. What he does by taking anyone's face, blowing it up, and then putting it in a very public place. And most of his work, not most of it, but some of his more prominent work, just because of the location, because like in the restaurant industry, I think the same with graffiti, location, location, location. He's done a lot of work on borders, right? Whether that's between Palestine and Israel or between the US border, places between, in the Iberian, between Africa and Spain, to really call attention and create humanity around the people that are living there. And so with the Truth Be Told project and basically giving a face to the local heroes, what borders, if you go with what JR is doing, what things do you think you're going to be going beyond? Like, what do you think you'll be tapping into as far as that project?
It's your hero, doesn't matter where they come from. Doesn't matter what the language they speak. Doesn't matter the age, and they doing something significant in your life. This was the hero. This was the person represent, This is the way we break barriers. In some situation like this, you don't care who's gonna take your test to COVID-19 in the health center. You're not gonna care about how is the doctor came to help you. Your neighbor gonna give you food if you if you was positive. Who's gonna check on you? And it's interesting because in my neighborhood, everybody's checking each other in the street. Are you okay? Are you protect yourself? And people have kids. I used to stop to see the kids okay, and they was out a little bit, and it's okay here. And we don't see the language, the background. This was one barrier we breaking out. It's like does not have a division between when you need to put hands together to elevate other people.
That's it. And we followed along on with JR, and I think this is a very special time in history. So I think this is going to be pretty powerful. it's interesting just hearing, we're trying to, want to facilitate, sometimes you want to facilitate something, help do something, but, we're only as good as the funds that we raise, right? And, funding's always a struggle for anything that's art and culture related, and here it's, although we were trying to address and be responsive to times of COVID-19, we were also very sensitive that, funding needed to go to immediate needs. We didn't want to put out asks, but at the same time, the community's filling us in on there's a huge need because, Josie's really led the charge on some of the aspects of working with the youth and some of the things that we're doing around youth curriculum work. We heard from the kids. We were hearing from the kids. So it's, truth be told, was something that we want to do. We've launched it. We have a responsibility. We don't have the money. So you're like, all right, we're running on it. We're running on it, but we're also running on the funding, and it's like we want to get as many stories as we possibly can. I'm looking at the printing costs doing our partnership with JR and the piece. And I'm like, man, it'll be awesome if we get, a huge, Lynn Community Health Center has said yes to their walls, and it's a health center that serves this community, and these are the youth stories. In fact, if we were to utilize them for the JR project, it's like, here's the heroes. Many of them are going to be frontline health workers. Many of them are going to be, the bus driver, the grocery clerk. It's going to be a pretty diverse offering. It'll be really cool to have it on the health center. We're running on the funding on that, so it's good because it gives you the charge, right? Because it's got to happen, right? And it's like that every year. It's like, hey, the artists are literally arriving. We're picking the artists up on Sunday. We got to get these walls primed. We've got to get this area cleaned up. We got to, it's a can do, but it's also you got to do it. And we're back in that place. So, it's like that on anything, like WASH. It's awesome. It's responsive. It fits into, there's some CARES Act funding there. There's some other funding potential there. But how do you get the news out to these municipalities when we haven't traditionally? This is a very responsive to this time period. We haven't really plugged in, but it's like, Chelsea, Revere, the entire Gateway City, Fall River, New Bedford, Springfield, anywhere that's densely packed, that's been particularly hit, very diverse populations, vulnerable populations in some regards in some of these cities. How do we get the news out that we've got these hand washing stations? How do we build? The demand is there. How do we plug in? So it's interesting. It's just a 3-person operation, so it's sort of like,
it's crazy.
That's it.
This is it right here.
You're looking at the.
Bill's right now getting all these texts. Al is not answering phones. Josie's on silent.
So we gotta scale because it's we've got this big space, and I'm trying to figure out a way that can we turn this into a bit of an assembly line. I think there's the challenge for we can do this safely here. We can all be wearing masks. We can spread out. There's just a ton of kids that are out there right now that they're not able to do the summer camp because the summer camp couldn't figure out a way to do the busing and make it. They couldn't fund it because you got to spread the kids out on the buses so much. So it's like camps that were serving 400 kids are serving 48 kids. Jobs that the kids traditionally got during the summer. They're not hiring. So how do we make sure that we're plugging in? How can we have the youth help us with these projects and build this. So we're trying to just figure that out. And this space is pretty cool if we can build it out and set it up as a bit of an assembly line. So trying to plug into, GE, still the biggest employer here in the city, 3,000 people. Used to employ, in post-World War II boom through the 70s, it was 45,000 employees, sizable. How do we plug in with them? They've started a partnership with Lynn Tech. They had hiring needs for machinists and parties retiring. Lynn Vocational Technical High School is literally abuts their property. There's all sorts of ways. We've got to find the ways to plug in to help facilitate some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but you improve, and create, and improve, adapt.
But that's why these, like your podcast is really interesting, in that we're hoping that there's parties that are listening that are, interested in this sort of work, and maybe interested in plugging in or figuring things out. Or we're open to hearing from people, and
collaboration.
If parties can help. I mean, we're headquartered in Lynn. Our hearts live in Lynn. Our DNA is here, and we'll always be here as long as we can do this work. We'll be here, but we are doing work in other communities and other cities, and we've been doing work in we've had 5-6 cities to date. But we're looking to really focus on these former industrial cities or gateway cities of the Commonwealth primarily.
And there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
There's nothing but work. There's a lot of cities that have been now. Imagine if you're 70 or 80 years old, you've seen some of these cities go through like 3 or 4 different transitions with the information technology, and now we're like even coming out of that into another space with COVID, where jobs are seemingly evaporating, and so cities are going to need to be innovative and work with local communities like Beyond Walls, which is why I'm so happy that we were able to sit down, because only through conversation can we continue to move forward, period. Yeah, exactly. And Beyond Walls does that, creates those spaces. And so if somebody, somebody's on the North Shore and they hear this and they're like, I really want to help what they do. Volunteering, donating, maybe they work at a company and they could run it up the flagpole and say, hey, you should check them out. I know we have this money set aside for nonprofits. How can what's the best way for people to help out, whether they have money, they don't have money, or they have a connection? What does that look like?
Yeah, so they can visit us at beyond-walls.org, and they can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Beyond Walls Lynn. But we welcome them plugging in any which way. So the Google line is on the website. Sometimes it rings more than other times. But it's we'd love to hear from parties. I mean, on the corporate sponsorship side, it's certainly something where we're looking for help. We're looking to expand that. Even like a soap sponsor for the hand washing stations would be huge. But yeah, I mean, local organizations would be great, plugging in with Polar beverages or anything. I think the reality is the festivals and installing street art is very special. It's special, right? When you're bringing all of these groups together and getting art up. In pre-COVID times, it was like, how many people can we get together in this time, in this one place? In COVID times, we're looking at how can parties follow along remotely as the art's installed, and how can we celebrate that? So, I'm looking for help on the technology side, everywhere, but if people want to just plug in, volunteer, share some ideas with us, whatever, it's, the address is there on the website. We're right here at 18 Mount Vernon Street in Lynn.
Just come knock on the door. That's all I do.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were going to open. I'm like, I didn't confirm. Hopefully he's there.
We're here. We're definitely here.
Well, Al and Josie, thank you so much for joining. me on the podcast. And beyond-walls.org is a great place to start. And even when you get to their homepage, you have all the social media icons underneath before you hit enter to go to the website. And please visit beyond-walls.org if you're interested in supporting their work. So thank you, guys.
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having us. Appreciate it.
Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Wifi and Water Podcast, and reach out to us if you'd like to be a guest or have an idea for a future episode.